happening, man? How are you?
Hey man, good to connect, brother.
Yeah, really good, man. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time for
Mhm.
making the hour, man. I know you got a million things going on, so it's a big deal. So I'm
No,
appreciative.
I'm happy to, man. I know it's taken us like a year and a half to make it happen.
Yeah, yeah, it's been a while going back for, but it's been cool, man. And I was trying to remember, was it Mark Bell that introduced us?
I
Because
think
I
it
know
was
I
Mark.
followed your stuff for a long time, and I don't remember how we got introduced. But I was trying to think back to it. I think it was Mark.
For
Um,
sure it was Mark. Yeah.
that sent the intro. Yeah, super
Yeah.
solid guy, man.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to do this for a couple of reasons, man. One, obviously, you're doing amazing work and you're brilliant and one of the go-tos for health and fitness for myself and my family, but for millions of people. And I know you know that. And I don't want to skip over that at all today. And maybe we'll hit some high level stuff in there, before we open up to Q&A. But two, over this year and a half, whatever it is, man, I've come to know you as somebody that I see eye to eye with and very much admire when it comes to being a husband and being a dad, and being a leader in a family and educating a family. And ultimately, like that's where I really want to go today, man. I'm really
Oh
excited.
yeah.
So
Well, don't drink my Kool-Aid too much, man, because like the more you learn, the less you know. And like I'm here to equally hopefully learn from you too, because
and
it's
and that's where the respect comes in,
yeah,
right? It's the pursuit of. It's not the
yeah,
assumption that we're there. It's the pursuit.
yeah,
It's the
for
pursuit
sure.
that we're all on the way to get. So that's I'm excited, man. So before these guys jump in for Q&A and before we keep rock and rolling and start talking about all the cool things that it is to be a dad, it's hard to imagine anybody not knowing who you are. And Google or YouTube search does a good job, and anybody listening to the podcast that'll do a easy job of informing you quickly. But who do you say Thomas is? If I was to say, all right, man, who's Thomas DeLauer? What do you? Because I get that question a lot. Who are you? What do you do? And I'm like,
Yeah,
shit, I don't know. How much time do we
yeah,
have?
man.
Right? And I
Yeah,
know that's not the same for you.
if we get woo woo here for a second, I don't know if you know who Ram Dass is, but like I mean, you got to be somebody before you become nobody, and hopefully, I'm at the nobody stage now. That's kind of where I want to be. You know what I mean? So I to like, I've worked hard to sort of give up my a little bit of my identity to God and just kind of just you know what I mean? So it's when I say that, like, who is Thomas DeLauer? I think if I had to like put it down, I'm just a hopefully just a guiding ethos for people to make the right decisions in their life that allow them to shine a little brighter. I mean, I think that's just what it comes down to, man. I mean, if I can, I call myself a translator of science, but I think at the end of the day, I just bring the energy and the passion for people to take an interest in bettering themselves and subsequently bettering their families and those that they're around, and just make the world a better place as much as you could put a definition on that. You know what I mean?
And I think that's a great definition. I like the word you use. So I very much pay attention to the words that people choose to implement. And one of the things I like what you just said right there is you are this translator of science. And again, I'm really excited to connect with you around the fatherhood and the husband journey and the education journey. And I think this will circle us back there. But that translator piece, to me, I differentiate between teachers and educators. And I feel like I can train most people to be teachers because it's usually just kind of a transfer of information, a translation of information is done by an educator. It's somebody who deeply has a deep understanding and can take that deep knowledge and simplify it for the masses and do what else you said, which is kind of inspire people to actually take some action around that. I see that in you. I've seen that in you for years. Is that transformation piece? Have you always been that way? Like, did you grow up as that guy that could break things down for people and get them to understand it? Or was that something you had to work on too?
That's something I had to work on because I've always been psychoanalytical, a super psychoanalytical person, but it was internalized, right? It was like always, how can I be better? Or quite frankly, more self-deprecating than anything, like psychoanalytical to a way that was like cutting myself down all the time. That's something that's had to change over the years, is like stop being so self-deprecating and actually like analyze yourself in a way that builds you up more. So I spent a lot of my childhood sort of that way. I was clinically OCD, and I was, so I had a lot of like there was a lot of stuff going on, and people still see that in me today, right? I'm very, you can tell, just like, I mean, okay, anyone, yeah, that guy's probably pretty obsessive, right? That's it's something that I don't mind having that label, if you want to call it that. But being able to translate, that was something that I didn't realize that I was decent at until, later in life, like really.
Yeah.
I've always been described as someone that could like get people excited about things that I was excited about. That definitely nothing there. But then I realized that it was just a matter of interest. It was things that I was into. So the things that I was into was easier for me to share that passion and get people excited about it. So there's no crazy secret sauce other than like the reason that I'm decent at what I do is because I really do embody that. Like I really do embody that. And it's not like a job. I mean, it is a job, but it's something that like I enjoy this. I do this. And because I do it, I fundamentally understand it at such a core level that I can explain it. Whereas even in the research realm, it's like people get so like just enveloped in their research that they just become kind of a talking head, and it's like they're not actually embodying it. You come across those real good true researchers like Dom DiAgostino and some of these guys that are real, like they're
Solid.
in it, they are out there, and they like when I say out there, like out there in the trenches, like doing the work and embodying it. I just don't have the PhD behind my name, so I realized like, okay, where, and I'm not going to, because that's just like, for me it was always like, how do I just get from point A to point B as
Yeah.
quickly and efficiently as possible to make an impact. Like, I don't want to go to school and get a PhD. That's not what I want to do. I want to be able to take those really smart people that have an awesome gift, a really amazing ability to look at a petri dish for 14 hours that I would go crazy doing, and take their amazing brains and put it out to people that could actually like benefit from it, without going through some stifled medium of filtration like PubMed and all this stuff where it just, who
Yeah.
knows what you're going to actually see.
Yeah. No, you do extraordinarily well, and that translating thing again. I think that is an educator standpoint. Do you ever get pushback because of the lack, so to speak, of the PhD? Do you ever get anybody that says, "Well, you're not a because this"?
Yeah, it used to happen a lot more, but I think as you're seeing, like people are opening their eyes, right? Like people are opening their eyes that like, wait a minute, I'm learning more from people that don't have these
Yeah.
initials behind their name. So it definitely happened a lot more. But it also happened with me being very, very clear that like I'm not a scientist. I don't claim to be one. I don't want to be one. I'm an applicator. Like I help apply this, which is something that's needed. So yeah, you're always going to get those people out there that are,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and it's frustrating, but it's those, that's not my audience. That's not who I want to talk to. So it's all good.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll tell you what, man, definition of terms too. So, say you're not a scientist, maybe not by label, but the scientific method of inquiry and of application. I mean, that is a piece of that, right? You are living that scientific method. Um,
Yeah.
so
And
I would challenge you on that and say you're very much a scientist, I believe.
well, in the ownage of like, if you're, you spend 10,000 hours on something, you're an expert. I mean,
Yeah,
then I'm at least a double expert, right?
that's
So
right.
it's
That's right.
like the amount of hours I spend on this is
Yeah.
ridiculous. So
I love it,
yeah.
man. Who do you continue? You mentioned Dom, and I've seen Peter Attia. I've seen you with a handful of people, and we got a lot of mutual friends in a lot of places. Who do you like to learn from now, or who are you excited to kind of pay attention to and learn now to keep yourself kind of up to speed on everything that's that's coming out and going on?
Yeah, man. I've been on a kick lately of finding like the diamonds in the rough, like
Yeah,
really. Like my entire like February is um spent pretty much, I'm flying, I'm just a new thing that I'm just enjoying. It's flying out researchers that have zero social media following or very little, just people don't know who they are,
yeah,
and people that are, and just bringing them out and interviewing them and learning from them, because those are the people that they haven't been, I don't know, bastardized. They haven't been like, there's just not
yep,
the crap of social media. It's like everyone, and this sounds cynical. I'm not trying to be cynical, but eventually they all become a little bit of the same, or they are all trying, clamoring for something. Like I want to learn from the people that are in the trenches, the people that are like really moving the needle on the research. So like the people that I'm like learning from, like Dr. Mike Ormsby, he's like one of the best exercise physiologists out there. He's just like,
yeah,
the dude is and he puts the pedal to the metal, and he puts his own nose to the grindstone as a triathlete and as a professional, or he's a semi-pro hockey player. It's just, those are the kinds of guys I want to learn from, right? Because I feel like once it's not true for everybody. Like Dom has a decent following, but like once some of these researchers develop a following, they all become, they have to be careful what they say, or academia is going to influence what they can say.
Very much.
And then you mentioned Mark Bell. Like Mark Bell is someone that I continue to learn from on an almost daily basis. Like he and I talk almost every day over some level of voice message or something. And those are the kind of people that I want to learn from. So like in the research arm, sure, there's all those diamonds in the rough, but dude, I want to talk to people that are dads. I want to talk to people that have been married for a long time,
Mm,
because I think we can all probably understand and agree here is like, business is hard, but dude, making a marriage work, like that's, you learn every day. And if you are not refining yourself and also releasing control, which is one of the hardest things, then you're not going to be there. Right. So it's just, I want to learn from those kinds of people. And like Mark is just so inspirational to me because he's been married for a long time. He still keeps a cool head. He still manages to enjoy his passions without feeling guilt. And like, so those are the people I've tried to learn from. And
I
you,
love.
man, like, I mean, I message you on stuff all the time. Like it's,
Yeah, bro. Oh, I appreciate that so much. Yeah, and Mark and Andy are just two of my favorite humans. I still get to I talk with them quite often, and Chris, I mean Chris too, to be honest. And and Jake, their son, and just amazing humans. The word that Mark always shoots for, equanimity. Like I've been
yep,
holding on to
yep.
that. I've been holding on to that so much, right? I'm the same man. I learned they're so inspirational, and part of it is again he takes it from an educator standpoint where it's not like I've arrived or learned everything there is to learn, and that is a risk in academia because you do have to almost stifle yourself sometimes in order to not have an issue with whoever you are associated with on the academic side, and I don't think people realize how pervasive that is. One of the words you use too, and I think this is the bridge into the familial part of this, is you use the word obsess and obsessive, and I very much use that word for myself often, and I am the most obsessed person that I know. And I also I'm obsessed about what we are building here. And I'm obsessed about raising my family and pouring into them and being the best husband and father on the face of this planet. And those are two different lanes that inevitably cross over, right? And so like the and balance is the word, right? But it's what does it look like to be able to be obsessed in the science part of this and translating and helping so many people like you do, and being as intentional as I know you are as a husband and as a father. Like, what is that quality versus quantity, and like, how do you wrestle with that in your head?
Yeah, it's a tough one, man. It really is. Because sometimes I feel like I'm very blessed because we live a few different places. Like we kind of split time between Southern California, and then I feel like this is a safe place. So I can say, I mean, we're in Tahoe on the Nevada side for very obvious reasons, and we're trying to spend more of our time here. But a lot of my business is still in SoCal, and that's just the way it rolls.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm very blessed in that situation. But then we when we're in different places, it's almost like I wear slightly different hats. Like when we're in Tahoe, like I'm away from my business a lot more. So I'm working on my business versus in my business.
Mhm.
And it allows me to, and I was just talking with my wife yesterday about this, like it's so nice to just, I'm home with them all the time. And I'm so much more involved in the homeschooling when I'm here, because I'm not filming, or I'm not doing this as much. Um, and it's made me realize just recently that like this sort of compartmentalization has to happen. Like you have to be able to really thoroughly compartmentalize. And to be able to do that becomes like really letting go of some of the guilt that I think that dads carry a lot. Like when it comes to like, even though you're providing, you're doing well, and there's like, if you are remotely absent, there's a difference between being physically absent and being like emotionally absent, and being able to really like, for me to be able to do my best work, I have to be able to like let go of that guilt. I have to be able to know that like, okay, like the guilt that I might feel or interpret or think that I'm getting from my wife or that I'm getting from my kids, that I'm actually just manufacturing in my own mind, releasing that so that I can focus on work and really truly come back and be present. Because I don't know if all dads are aware of like what presence really is, like really, man. Because if you are coming back and you've been working for 8 hours or 16 hours or whatever, but it's been layered with guilt, when you come back, there's no way, no fucking way that you're going to be able to be 100%. Like your allosteric load is so, you're so taxed, but also like you build a resentment, you build a subconscious resentment. And like you sort of like, you're manufacturing something that didn't even happen. Like you're starting to build resentment of like, oh, well, hey, like, and then you have to justify, and then you have to like, posture, right? Because like, well, I was working. It's like, no one said anything, right? I know I'm kind of, you get what I'm saying, but
So 100%,
yeah.
a
So,
hundred percent.
so that posturing, what I realized, it gets into the sort of like what is the definition of masculinity, really? It's not this posturing bullshit that guys think it is. Like true masculinity is being able to like let that shit go and like be able to come home and just be a safe place, like be the damn safe place. And that doesn't mean like posturing. That doesn't mean that you carry a 45 on your hip all the time. It's not that. It's like being what is it? What do they need? What is safety? Um, and it's a constant evolution for me that it's just I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying this path. Um, but that's been a big thing for me.
It's hard, man. No, I'm proud of you for that, and I know how intentional you are in that. We work with Todd Herman, who wrote the Alter Ego Effect. And I'm not sure if you've ever spoken to Todd or worked with Todd or seen that book at all, but he worked with Kobe Bryant on the whole. He's part of that whole Black Mamba mentality sort of
Mm.
deal. And one of the things I love about what he talks about and what he works with his clients on is just setting that very clear definition, because sometimes we operate in that black and white, we as men. So it's that very clear definition of, look, who's Thomas as a husband and as a father? Who is that guy? What does he do? And what does he also not do? And I'm going to go ahead and define both of those things. And I'm also going to look over here and go, okay, who's Thomas at work? Thomas the scientist, Thomas the translator. Who is that guy? What does he do? What does he not do? Some of that stuff's going to cross over, some of it's not. We can define those things relatively easily. The hardest part for us tends to be, how do I switch fully from this one to this one when it's time,
Yeah.
right? How do I fully make that so that, like you said, I'm not having to posture, I'm not having to
Yeah.
bullshit, I'm not having to pretend.
Yeah.
I actually made that switch. It's a difficult thing, and the guilt part that you're talking about. I think there's an interesting cultural switch, and I wonder if you've seen the same or think the same, where it's like there's almost this cultural narrative of like, hey, you're not actually a good dad unless you're there all the time by their side, all the time for every single thing. And I don't know if that's the case, man. I do believe there's some time for independence. The time you're there, let's make it real and focused. But after, man, there's some time for independence, and that's okay. It's okay if dad has to go to work. It's okay for them to see that happen. They're not going to break because of that. But it feels like the guilt's getting pushed more on that side. I don't know. Do you feel the same on that, or?
Oh yeah, there's a big cultural narrative with it for sure. And it's hard to not like swim in that, It's like
Yeah,
we there's no denying that this isn't the 1950s anymore and things are
yeah,
different. Like there's no,
yeah,
we all know that. So like just redefining what this like a modern dad is, it's a mind fuck. Like
yeah,
it's really, it's difficult because you're I mean, every time you look at your phone, everything you feel guilty, but it's like I know enough from the scientific perspective sometimes to be dangerous that some of the worst emotions that a person can carry are guilt and shame. Like, and like even from a religious perspective as well. Like, I mean, those are the things you just don't want to carry. Like
yeah,
that drains you. So it's like to be able to like combat that and to not be walking around with that like guilt and shame of something that you really shouldn't feel guilty or shameful over at all.
yeah,
Like, like, and being real, like, and being also like an element of what I call extreme, like, authentic ownership. Like, own your shit. And that means owning if you are in that moment, it's going to be okay if you are not like your top performing self at a moment in time, but you better own it. Like that's fine and accept like utmost acceptance of like the fact that you're not going to be 100% all the time. And there's going to be times when you suck and there's going to be times when you're kind of a clown and a jerk, and accepting that and not trying to smother it, and accepting it doesn't mean embracing it and letting it in, but realizing that like, hey, I'm owning this. And it comes right back to the same thing. Like all of us guys know how hard it is sometimes to just look your wife in the eye and just be like, fuck, I'm sorry. Like I was a dick. Like, like seriously, because then you think that it's going to open up this channel for them to just come at you. When in reality, 9 times out of 10, it softens them. And but it's the same thing like with yourself, being able to say like, hey, you know what? Like I'm, I'm not my best self right now. Like I'm not. And that's fine. This will pass. And, that's just the relief that you need so that you don't carry that crap all the time.
Such a good word, man. Such a good word. And what you said, I have found to be true too. That 9 times out of 10, when you own that kind of stuff, it actually does help her soften and respond better. How do you proactively take a look? You're talking about the guilt that comes on us as dads, and kind of that cultural play, and how we tend to try to posture and go through all that stuff and don't want to own some things. I think you're spot freaking on. There's another side of the cultural guilt that happens to moms too, and
Yeah.
so part of that marriage now too is, now as a leader in that family, you're having to help her work through any of that she's dealing with. Like, how do you guys work on that together? Like, you're owning your stuff there too. How do you help her on her side? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. Like, my wife, she owns herself and her stuff in a very different way than how I might, right? Like, I think we have an ability to be a little more just direct with ourselves if we open to that. Like, once that door's open, I think that most guys, it's almost an element of some toughness inside where you kind of like it. Like you learn to develop an interesting relationship to be a little bit like, no, I can take a cold, hard look at myself and I can really, and that's true masculinity to be like, no, I'm being a little bitch right now. Like, or, like, and with my wife, I can speak for her specifically. It's like they may not look at themselves a little more direct, right? I feel like they feel more, like they're more flowy with it. And, where I can take some responsibility is always being like, okay, if I see that happening with her, I see that she's ruminating. I know those things. And us as guys, we've always been there, where it's like where your wife she's in a spot where she's thinking and it's almost scary because you're almost like in purgatory. You're like, oh God, like what's coming? What's coming? And it's our job to not react preemptively, but like give her the safe place to be able to have that discussion. Because again, I think I speak for a lot of guys and I say like sometimes I will avoid trying to ask the question that needs to be asked because I don't want to open the door and have that discussion. I don't want to go there. I know where it's probably going to go. Um, but that's sort of our role as men, is to be able to not necessarily take on their stuff, but to be like so rock steady that we can ask that question when it needs to be asked. So my advice there is like from what I've seen is just, watch your ladies, like watch how they move, watch how they like what's affecting them and ask them to talk, ask them what's eating them. Because if you don't ask them what's eating them, it's going to ruminate and it's going to come out in a weird way. They need to express it, whereas we need to go in on ourselves and address it directly. They need to address it with you.
So good, man. And gentlemen, I promise, man, the more you really, I like what you said right there too, is watch. And we are talking about the scientific method earlier. If you watch, if you really observe, you'll start to make those hypotheses too, and you'll start to learn how to ask better questions or get to the question that needs to be asked faster. Because if you're really watching, if you're really paying attention, you're going to start to see the patterns. You're going to see the behaviors. And I've mentioned this a number of times, and I got hit earlier this morning. My wife slapped me on, and I playfully, but slapped me on the arm because we just had breakfast with the kids, and she just said, "Oh, you know what I forgot about?" And I said, "Yep." And I told her what it was that she was about to say. And so she hit me and she's like, "I hate it when you do it." And I'm like, as soon as you said it, the way you said it, I just knew what you were talking about, because I just watch so obsessively, not in a weird way, but in a I want to serve and lead way, and we got an opportunity to do that. I love that, man. Um, the the decision to homeschool with the kids, like, where was that something that you knew early on you guys were going into? Is that something that, you guys kind of like came to as like, "Ooh, this was the thing that kind of drove that"? Is it like, where did that all come from for you guys?
I think we did know from day one, just given our lifestyle, like
Yeah.
that was we traveled too much. We neither of us like to be bridled in any fashion. Like we've just like we if
Yep.
someone, it's kind of, I mean, especially my wife, if someone tells her what to do, she pretty pretty evident that she just goes the 180
Other
degree
way.
opposite direction.
I like her style.
And that's like has made her such an awesome mom. And I'm pretty much the same way too. I don't like to be told what to do. I'm not afraid to say that I don't have a big, I don't get along with authority, but I, in the traditional sense, I'm obviously a huge. I work with the military in LE, so I'm not that kind of authority, but authority. And so that was a clear path for us. And then obviously there was some things that happened, of course, that we're all familiar with that were the big kind of impetus nail in the coffin. So like, all right, like let's no, not happening. So for us, I mean, it's the best thing ever, and you adapt. We're humans. Everything in us is designed to adapt. And it's like, it's yeah, so we're with the kids a lot, as everyone probably here is at homeschools, and it's I
So
wouldn't change it for the world, man. It's awesome.
so so cool. And you guys went to, you were out on a long trip recently. I mean, you guys were gone for quite a while. Were you guys gone for like you guys were gone for like a
Yeah.
month or so, yeah?
We were gone for like 6 weeks in Europe,
Yeah.
and then and then earlier in the year, because I was doing that stuff with out for in Normandy for D-Day, so we were out for a month earlier in the year too. Um, yeah, no, it's so awesome to be able to. They learn more in one day of traveling, kind of world schooling, how we do it, than they
Yeah.
probably would learn in 3 months at school.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. Did
yeah,
you feel the cultural difference when you were places? I remember you sent it was like the Mc I don't remember. You sent me pictures about I think it was like McDonald's or something.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
That was like
yeah.
super dip, but like, so there were some obvious differences there. Did you feel the difference in just the culture and parenting and the family? Because I remember you said something to the context of like, this just seems where you guys were seemed more family oriented.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just I mean, even down to like an energetic value of it. Like you just feel it. You just feel it. But everything is integrated. Like everything is so seamlessly integrated for families where it's like it's really hard to describe. And if people have been there, like especially Switzerland is where we spent a lot of time. Switzerland's got its issues, but one thing that it's definitely noted for is like its family values. Like they're very big on that, and they have a pretty large homeschool population, and they kind of condone it there. Whereas, here it's kind of the opposite. You're almost like a weirdo if you do it there. If you're not really a weirdo, like it's not, it's so that you could just feel like everything, the way the playgrounds were, the way like things are structured in a way for like adults to be with their kids. Like even the playgrounds are like there's an area for the kids, and then there's also like pull-up bars and things. It's just like, okay, it just makes sense and it's cohesive and everything is encouraging a family value. Whereas like you almost feel a little weird sometimes in the US, like if you just if you support family values, then you're labeled in such a way. It's like, why are we labeled? Like, shouldn't we? What the?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's just a lot of that, and we really toyed with the idea of moving to Switzerland and like, but I think there's reasons why we wouldn't. There's economic reasons. There's just logistical reasons, and it may not make sense, but it's just the vibe there. You feel it. You definitely feel it.
That's awesome, man. I freaking love that. Gentlemen, I'm gonna kind of go one little rabbit hole a different way, and then you guys, I'll start bringing you guys in for the remainder of the hour here too. So, any questions, comments, thoughts, good, and get your hands up. I'll start bringing you guys in too. The the homeschool perspective, I think it's obviously huge fans of that here and what we're able to expose them to. And a big part of it in my house is exposing my kids to what I do on the business side, and I mean that very tactically sometimes, like what I do in terms of here's how the cash flow works, from our LLCs to this trust here to this trust here, and this is where we give, and we give out of this foundation here, and this is who we give to, and here's how we decide, and here's like there's all of the tactical stuff, and then some of the conceptual stuff too. You're in a fascinating field. One of my favorite one of my favorite fields to nerd out about altogether, which is I'm sure how I came across you before Mark ever even introduced us. I love the whole exercise physiology space. That was actually my major in college too, for no other reason other than I was an athlete and I didn't know what else I wanted to do. But I was always fascinated in health and human body and performance. And so you got this really interesting technical space. Do you bring them into any of the stuff that you are kind of diving into or learning about? Like, are those conversations they're interested in yet? Do you bridge that? Or you just how do you play
Yeah.
with like your day to day and their involvement in it?
Yeah, they're so it's so intertwined in our daily life, like minus maybe the technical aspect,
Yeah,
that by osmosis, they've just like they don't want seed oils. They don't, it's kind of funny. Like
yeah,
it's like but we never tell them, like, don't, I don't know what we say we never, like we do like talk to them and coach them and we want them to have some strong values and some strong positions where they feel fit. But like it's not like we're saying like, hey, like avoid seed oils. Like they just see mom and dad and how we eat, like it's just like and they
yeah,
so and I found that like through osmosis and it's like my son this morning like rolled out of bed and he was like, you know, okay, is it time to work out? Because he likes to come in, he's 7 and my daughter's 4, and like they just love to come in the garage and like, yeah, I mean they screw around and just swing on the TRX bands and stuff like wow. But I mean the fact that they are their mind is saying, let's get our bodies moving, like first thing in the morning, that's all I could ask for. I'm not gonna shove anything down their throat. I'm not gonna tell them, you know, they do it on their own. That's fine. Um, the technical pieces, my son is just getting to an age now where he's starting to ask why on certain things, like, well, why is this better and stuff like that, which is it's interesting because I try to handle it with nuance, but like what level of nuance can you really give a
yeah,
seven-year-old, right?
100%.
So he wants a clear-cut answer. So it's kind of like, well, this just fuels you better. You will move better, you'll feel better, you'll be faster, you'll be stronger.
Yeah.
There you go. You know.
Sold. Yeah,
Yep.
sold. Done.
Yep.
That's awesome, man. Well, you're making normal. I say we get to make normal what we make normal.
Yeah.
And so that's it. You're making that normal. It is. That's just the more is caught than taught sort of mentality. And they're seeing this and this is just becoming the day to day and what's normal for them. I think that's freaking awesome, man. Because there really is no better way to go. And I love the fact that the first hand I see right here is a gentleman by the name of Sean Corcoran. Because one thing I believe I'm correct on this, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, Tom. You had a physical, you're obviously in ridiculous shape, but you also had a pretty big physical transformation where I'm talking like 100 pounds transformation kind of deal. Is that,
Yeah.
am I
Yeah.
remembering that correctly? Okay.
Yeah, that was my private equity days, like when I came out of the kind of the financial world, and that was
Yeah.
I was about 300 pounds. So that was kind of like what when I got out of that world and I lost all the weight, that was like where I like, no, I need to do something like different, and I want to do something different for work because I never want to go back into that world again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so for
Yeah.
sure.
Pretty freaking phenomenal, man. It's pretty awesome. And talking about physical transformations, the gentleman I'm going to bring in here, Mr. Sean Corcoran, that's another guy right there. Physical transformation, and this man is an absolute beast. He also happens to be an amazing human being. What's up, brother? How are you?
Hey, how are you? Good. Tons, thank you for joining us today.
For sure.
Can y'all hear me?
Yep,
Yes, sir.
gotcha.
I know I ask that every single time I start talking when I'm wearing these headphones, but I just can't tell.
No, you're good.
Um, so yeah, I was 300 pounds, and today I'm still around 240. And when I started all of that, or when I really dove into it, I started watching your YouTube as well as a couple of other guys, Mike Israetel and to just to learn as much as I could about nutrition and about the science of working out and losing weight. So I kind of anticipated that would be what the topic of conversation was today. And then I saw you at BK Live speaking, and
Oh,
I
cool.
thought that was very interesting as well. I will say I have never seen anyone your size with biceps like yours. Everyone in my table at BK Live was trying to figure out how that's possible. It's really crazy. I know the guys on camera can't see it, but just like I don't know if it's genetics or if it's just like that's how you lost your weight, just focusing on biceps every single day. But but it worked. but the question that I actually had, you said something about, if I'm remembering correctly, about how to the effect of there's nothing more masculine than being able to admit that when you're wrong, being able to admit when you're not your best self, to be able to admit those things. Um, and I've been talking to a couple of groups about that a lot in the context of um, men feel more feel that it's easier to be vulnerable themselves whenever they are confronted with the vulnerability of another man, and not in the context of these shirtless dancing around the fire crying circles that we see on Instagram,
Yep.
but like
Yep.
real strong, confident, and competent men.
Yeah.
And then I saw Chris Williamson posted something the other day talking about this, and the way that he reflected on it was that men have to earn a certain degree of man points, and be in a specific or a certain position. His example was Chris Bumstead, but talking about crying in front of his wife and stuff. And so I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. I know in your space you have millions of followers, and so I'm really just curious to hear your insight on that thought, that juxtaposing that men respond with vulnerability, or feel more comfortable being vulnerable themselves, or letting go of their secrets or whatever. I run a pro-life men's nonprofit. I lost my first child to abortion when I was 19, and it led to 7-year methamphetamine addiction, homelessness, unemployment, everything. And by the grace of God, I'm now an attorney. I have 5 kids, doing great. But when I share that story, what I find is every single time that I've ever shared it, someone has come forward, even if they're not in the same position that I was in. And so that's kind of the context of what I've been talking about. But at what point would you say a sufficient amount of man points is really necessary to present that?
Yeah, that's a good question, because that's such an arbitrary number. It's like, really, like, what is it? It's a very vague thing. Like, what is a man point? What do you define as a man point? You could theoretically classify a man point as being able to, like, have those real discussions with yourself, right? But some people may not see that. A man point might be a superficial value. Um, but I would be lying if I didn't say that, like, I wasn't an egotistical dick before, like, I had a level of success enough to, like, realize that, like, my ego didn't matter, right? So, like, and be able to talk about it. So I would be totally bullshitting you if I said, like, you could just do it. Um, but I think every single person is different, and I think that line is going to be crossed. When you finally cross that line, I mean, like, wait a minute, my wife can see me cry, and she doesn't think I'm weak as a result of that. That threshold is going to be different for a lot of people. One thing that really rocks the world when I kind of say this is, in a lot of ways, women are much stronger than us. Like, they are much stronger than us. And, like, we are strong in interesting ways, different ways, but they are strong in that, like, they don't need the weird boundaries that we need around our ego. Like, we protect ourselves, like, with constant, like, protection of our ego, because we just don't want to lose it. We don't want to lose our image. Whereas, like, only recently have women kind of started to develop that on social media. It's like they inherently are so much stronger. And that's part of what's really even hard as a masculine, like, male, to be able to accept that, like, my wife is freaking strong, and she's stronger than me in so many ways. And to be able to know that, like, they actually can a lot of times take the weight of that. And we don't want to give them that, right? We don't want to give them the weight. Like, we protect them from our stress. We protect them from our work stuff, because we don't think that they want to hear it or they can handle it. But a lot of times it ends up driving a wedge, because then they don't feel involved, right? They don't feel like, so I've found that the moment you can just kind of rip off that Band-Aid, like, any time is right, and know that she's probably ahead of you. She's probably ahead of you. And if you just have some trust in that, and it's tough. Like, in my situation, like my wife grew up with a really strong dad that was really covered up his emotions a lot and still does, and he's an awesome dude, but just, worked his hands to the bone every day, came home bloody as a diesel mechanic, and so that's what she grew up with. So she even admitted to me, she's like, yeah, it's interesting to have a guy that's willing to like share his emotions, and I've been with her since high school, but I've always been that way. I've always been someone that is okay with kind of talking, but it just got better as I got older. Um, but when you empower them, you're not smothering them, you're empowering them. And you guys probably know who John DeLauer is.
We've had John come
Yeah, John's just super close friend of mine too. And he's kind of told me, he's just like, you gotta know your wife enough to know like that sometimes they need a job, and that job might be actually stepping in and being very open, being like, I need your support right now. I'm going through something. It's giving them that empowerment that they need. Because if you hold it from them, then they feel like you don't trust them with it, right? And you also have to be okay enough with yourself to know that what's going to be is going to be. And like, if you unload some of your stresses and some of your emotion onto them and it doesn't go over well, like, that's not your problem, bro. It's not. Like, it's just like you did what you did and you let that stuff go. And sometimes it won't work the way that you expect it to. So just don't have expectations. But I do know that when you let go and you empower them a lot more and give them the power, they don't usually take that power and put it over you. They take that power and lift you up too.
Awesome. That's a great answer. I really appreciate the time you took to give it.
Yeah, a little long-winded, sorry.
Oh, it was great, man.
Not as long as my question. You're good.
It's great. And Sean, I will say I just want to throw this out there in light of talking about shedding our egos. You and I have been together in person a number of times, and you've never mentioned my biceps once to my recollection. So I just want that to be known that I'm a
Yeah.
little.
When the time comes, I will.
And to answer that question,
Keep working.
I will learn it.
Biceps have always been a strong suit for me, so it's not like I'm doing anything like insanely different. But I've always liked deadlifts. I've always liked pulling exercises more. So it's just they just grow by default, and it sounds wrong, but they're actually a problem. Like they're actually like I don't like because then they're like hard on my traps when I run because it's carrying a lot of weight in my arm. So it's not like I don't even train them that much. So hopefully that makes people feel better or worse. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think it actually did both to me somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny. We'll get Jaron here, man. Speaking of Deloney, so yeah, it's funny because I was supposed to go, not supposed to. I was invited to a hunting trip with John, coming up here in Oklahoma, but I'm not going to be able to make it. But it just so happens our next question here is from a big JD fan for sure. What's up, JD?
Hey, what's going on? Thomas, hey, thanks for taking the time and hanging with us today. I think everybody wants to, it's going to be kind of a long string of thoughts, but there'll be a question, I guess, really from it. But I think everybody
question in here too. So I'm just getting ahead of the JW train. So just
appreciate it. Yeah, everybody
Actually,
wants to.
Before you go, just so you know, Matt, like I've got more time if we want to go over an hour or two.
Thank you.
So just like I've got up until I've got something at 12:30 my time Pacific. So like we're good for another half an hour.
I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Yeah. So like everybody wants to get in shape, right? And as Delotti always says, like everybody wants to snap into a Slim Jim and then just like start getting, working out and getting buff and getting big, right? Or being in like their peak physical form. And I think my question to you really is about the those who are already have a good routine and already working out, but then like, that frustration of I got to work out today, but I can't, my schedule got blown up or something. And then now all of a sudden you're just kind of annoyed at the end of the day. And when it's okay to rest and then forcing yourself to, what, like, for example, sometimes my wife, I'll ask her, hey, did you get a chance to work out today? Because I know she wants to, right? And so it's like, hey, I'll get rid of my workout so that she can go work out and she can do what she needs to do, right? That side versus, hey, where do I start, right? And how two people might be going through the same problem in life, but then the same solution is not for everybody. One person, the solution might be, hey, you need to get out and you need to go to the gym and make some friends and just start doing these habits. Where another person, it's like, hey, you actually need to dial it back a little bit, right? And I want to get your perspective on where to start, or for those that have already started, when it's like, hey, recognizing and being okay and finding peace that like, hey, you know what? I am giving it 110% all the time, and I do need to dial it back just a little bit to support family, to find some peace, to help my wife out, or whatever it may be.
Yeah, man, you got to manage like very realistic expectations with yourself on things. Like first off, when you set anything up, but secondly, part of those expectations are realizing that what we know of as being like the perfect routine or the perfect exercise structure or timing is a construct, right? It's a construct that we either feed ourselves or what we've been taught through organized sports and exercise physiology for so long, right? Like one thing that I've learned in doing what I've done for so long is that everything is changing all the time. There's no like structure. And there are days when I absolutely miss a workout and nothing goes to crap. In fact, sometimes I end up actually being able to push it harder the next day. And that's not like a physiological thing that I'm talking about. There's even this model I've talked about in videos like with nutrition. It's called the constrained energy model, which is where I find it so fascinating. And it's a model because it hasn't become a full, like flushed out concept. But the model basically suggests that you will always work and have output within a given range. So basically, like this is kind of butchering it, but to make it very simple, if your body says, I'm going to burn roughly 3,000 calories a day, you're going to burn that 3,000 calories per day. And if you go on a treadmill and burn 2,000 calories of it, your body's going to downregulate a lot of things so that you don't overburn, right? Because it's going to try to preserve. So it's going to downregulate all kinds of processes subconsciously, subconsciously, where you're just going to be less active, less fidgety, little things, right? The same thing kind of happens when you don't train occasionally. This is not saying as a norm to like not go and work out, but like it happens with me where it's like just a general acceptance and an element of like self-care of just being like, you know what, like there's other things that are loading on my body today, and that's okay. And tomorrow you end up being able to literally put out more, right? Because this constrained energy model makes it so that you end up preserving what you didn't use today for tomorrow. And that's the other thing is we also think of this stuff as like a constant like 24-hour clock that resets every night at midnight. That's not how calories work. That's not how the body works. That's not how the world works. That's not how the universe works. Just like time, again, like I get weird here and I'm not trying to get weird, but like time is a construct too, right? So like I encourage people like look at more of your workouts over the course of a week, not necessarily every day, and maybe today went to crap and that's fine. If you have the ability to hit a 2 a day tomorrow, then that's all good. But also, to make up for it, but also just give yourself that peace, knowing that like everything that you've structured as X number of workouts per week is bullshit. Okay, like you move your body, you push your body, and you trigger adaptation, and you embarrass your cells enough to adapt. That's all that matters. Like seriously, adaptation. So like I don't care like what the day looks like. It may happen, it may not. All that matters is that like, are you pushing yourself to an adaptation in some way? So that's a little bit of just some like, brain food to kind of think on. Like, it's like, what does that look like, right? And that doesn't mean it doesn't give you a license to just go skip workouts. And then kind of the other part of the question is like for other people, like they all have a different approach, right? And some people really do need that like tactical, very pragmatic, like they need a system and a process. The caution with that is like once one thing goes wrong in that process, those kinds of people tend to derail, right? Because then they're so process oriented that like if there's a wrench in the process, then they think the whole thing is bunk and they give up. And we just know that like we are perfectly imperfect human beings, that like you just got to get it in when you get it in. And one of the things that I've learned, especially like homeschooling, and this is more of a practical thing, a tactical thing, it's, fortunately, I work from home, so it makes it easy, but a lot of times like microdosing my workouts ends up being what I do, right? Like it ends up, I know that maintaining intensity is the most important thing. And when I say that, it's like, I would rather go out into the garage and give 10 minutes of my all and then come back out later and give 5 minutes of my all with some weighted pull-ups. And you know what? The funny thing is, by volume, like I've actually ended up doing more than I would have done if I just dedicated an hour where my day has gone to shit, or I made the mistake of checking email right before I went into the gym and then my head's in the wrong place. Or it's just, Hopefully that makes sense. But like microdosing, when you have the ability, I call it microdosing workouts. And Mark Bell's talked about that too. We're both fans of it. Like you're busy people, like try to integrate movement and fitness into your life versus this like artificial segmented like 47 minutes of the day or something.
100%.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, one thing I've learned over the years is just learning to have, make good practice and good choice and a good routine. So that way, if I do ever skip a beat, I can fall back into it again. And really, on those days, I find it challenging just making the choice where I find peace is just doing the next right thing. And if the right thing means putting myself aside so that I can support the family in another way or support my schedule in another way, then I'll do that. And I usually end up appreciating it at the end. But I greatly appreciate the answer, brother. Thank you.
Yeah, dude. And trust your gut, man. That's like the big thing. Like trust your like on overtraining and stuff like that, your gut is right. Usually, like if you're feeling beat down, that's not a fake thing. Like you're beat down for a reason. So find a different way to stress and tax your body that isn't going to beat that down more. Because that's one thing that took me a long time to learn. Overtraining is not like an easy thing. It's hard to overtrain. So you're probably not quote unquote overtrained, but your body's telling you something, right? So like trust that intuition, and maybe that's a day that you go for a walk or for a run instead of bang your body up with a barbell, right? It's just trust that.
Super smart. Yeah, and SEMA's got me shifting those days and getting back into jumping some rope
Hell
and
yeah. Those rope
being,
flows that he does.
yeah,
Yeah.
the rope flows and all that kind of stuff. He's got, but that's helping declutter this
Yeah.
old body too. All right, Jay-Z. So, hey, brother, I've been told to ask Jay-Z because I always like to confirm all things Australian with you, right? And so my wife told me I needed to ask you, is it true that Australians don't say brush their teeth, they say wash their teeth?
I don't think I've ever said wash my teeth. I definitely say brush.
Okay.
Your wife, she's been spun a few there, mate.
She's been lied to a number of times, brother. So I always want to confirm with you. I said I'll go to the expert. He's a genuine one. So thanks, man. Good.
I saw a video the other day. It was a 1980s commercial for traveling to Australia for Americans, and it was Paul Hogan. And I
Yeah,
wanted to
Al
clip it and
Dundee.
send it to you immediately. Oh, I thought of you straight away.
That's hilarious. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was good, man. It's good. All right. Good morning. My question is, you were mentioning presence, and I'm in this sort of constant battle of thinking exactly what you were saying there, Thomas, that if I'm at work, I should be at home. If I'm at home, I should be at work. If I'm at the gym, I should be doing this. And I'm slowly dialing it in a little bit better. And I'm putting the lizard at bay, for lack of a better term. But while you were going through that process of, having that presence, because that's what I've identified as my big thing that I want to work on this year or at this current time, what was it that you were doing to really dial it in and figure all that out?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of little things that I've done. Like I've always been, I mean, the stuff that people don't want to hear, that's like, I mean, I've always been a big meditator, prayer, all that stuff works, right? That there's no doubt that works. But what's crazy, man, it's been a big game changer for me is actually getting on the breathwork game. Like really like using some apps, like actually like really dedicating like 15 minutes to good breath work to get myself into the right state. I mean, there is again, I'm like such a sometimes to my detriment, like such a scientific minded person that it takes me out of the realm of like some of the stuff that sometimes really matters, right? But like I almost need a little bit of scientific proof for me to like get buy-in enough to go off the deep end. And breath work was one of those things where it took me a long time. It took me like seeing fMRI scans and like how people's brains change. And so like that was like a tactical thing, right? Like that was like, okay, so when I go into the gym, again, I'm fortunate enough like I can go in my garage or like my studio gym, like where I film and stuff, and I can be separate and I can do my own thing. I'll do 10 or 15 minutes of like guided breath work through an app or something that just gets me into that moment of presence with my workout, right? Like that's like me putting food on the table is also dependent on me to a certain degree being able to train and work out. And if like my mind is somewhere else, that I carry that the rest of the day because I'm like, oh, I didn't give it my all. I didn't like now I'm letting my family down, like all the stuff that we carry with that. So being able to be present, like there are those tactical things that you can do, but I think a lot of it really is like being able to be aware of when you aren't being present, and which is sounds very cliche and very basic, but little mindfulness exercises that you can do like in the present, right? Actually, another thing that John Deloney taught me actually is really interesting is you've probably heard the story because I think he's talked about it. His father was a homicide detective. And one thing that he taught me as someone that overthinks things a lot, you have a tendency to not be present because you're thinking about the thoughts, right? You're thinking and you're ruminating on that. So he said his dad had taught him that like one of the worst things that he could do as a homicide detective was his role was to like walk into a crime scene and read the room, right? Analyze, check the emotions, kind of get the idea of what's going on here, like to start kind of investigating. And to not have the ability to turn that off when you go home is extremely dangerous because you don't need to like analyze everything that's going on. You need to simply be an observer, right? Like they call it in like witness consciousness, right? Like you can talk about that like in like where you're able to kind of observe what's happening in your own mind and observe without actually trying to analyze everything that's going on. So the reason that I say that is because the guilt typically is like a constant overanalyzing. Like you're just overanalyzing. Like you're just thinking so much of like every catastrophizing situation that could go wrong to the point where it finally bubbles up as an emotion that we call guilt. And like, what the heck is guilt, right? It's a vocabulary, it's a word that we've made up to describe a feeling, right? And this feeling is I'm not good enough or I'm not putting it all on the table. So if we break it down to what that feeling really feels like, it does feel like you're not giving it all, right? You usually feel guilty when you're not giving a fucking 100%. So give 100%, right? So it's like, and also be okay with sometimes that you're not. So when you go home, you just be like, what does it feel like? I don't need to be giving 100% to everything at all times, but you do need to be giving 100% in those micro levels, right? We cannot multitask. Humans have like, we don't have the ability to multitask. We just don't. And the sooner that people can accept that, the easier that it gets to be like, I'm not going to be good if I multitask. Like it is always going to be a 70% here or a 30% there. So it can be in a 5-minute period of time, but I promise you like that 5 minutes of just being like 100% is going to be better than 2 hours of being 50%. It's like the math doesn't add up there, but it does. And we've all experienced this. I had been really busy the last like few weeks and I'm like, we're here in Tahoe. So I'm like enveloped in just the family chaos and the kids. And the other day I finally just like went into the playroom with my son and I like built Legos with him. And I just gave him my 100% undivided attention for like 10 minutes. And it fixed the behavioral issues that we were frustrated with over the last 2 days. It was like, he just needed like me to be 100%, like no distraction, committed to that playtime. And that also solved the guilt problem for me. And it didn't take much. So I guess the ultimate thing I'm saying is like these little deposits of 100% go a really, 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 really long way. And so if you can be like, okay, I'm put the phone down for 5 minutes and just give it, you are doing not only your kids a service, but you're doing yourself a service because you'll feel like, yeah, you know what? That when you realize the problem of guilt is the problem of like recognizing that you're not giving 100%, the answer is, okay, give 100% and the guilt goes away, even if it's just for a minute.
Jay-Z.
I love that you finish on the example of your son there because that's where I think I've started to notice it most prevalently is when I'm with my 2-year-old daughter, and that if I'm not 100% locked in with her, then I start to feel that guilt. So tactical presence, that's what I'm taking away from that message there, sir. Thank you very much.
I like that, man. That's good.
Jay-Z. Love it. Keep your teeth brushed, sir, not washed. And then anything that I got to figure out from a Hispanic perspective, I'm going to so man, how are you?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Good to
Thomas,
see
thank you so much good to see you too, guys. Somebody that does that really well is like that 100% full attention is Matt. Thomas, I don't know if you would agree with this, but Matt does this really well.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
Yeah, when you're talking to him face to face or even on a Zoom call, like he's fully he's just one-on-one with you, man.
Yeah.
So I just want to throw that out there. I know you don't like compliments, but I'm gonna throw that out there.
Oh, but I appreciate
it. Yeah, Thomas, I wanted to lean in on your entrepreneurial mind, man. You've amassed, I mean, I'm looking at your YouTube, like almost 4 million subscribers over the course of the past 10 years, and you've been using social media as a way to grow your business and your brand and all that. And I wanted to lean in on that and kind of find out what have you found to be like effective principles or frameworks that you've used and learned along the way to amass not necessarily the following, but just the growth in your business and using social media as a way to garner leads and that kind of thing. There's a lot of entrepreneurs here that are kind of doing that, whether it's for Apogee schools or for our own businesses, coaching businesses, that kind of thing. So I'd love to lean in on your wisdom on there.
Yeah, man. I mean, there's a few things that I could clearly say have been effective. And then there's probably a lot of things that I don't know if they've been effective or not. But, you know, coming back to that 100% thing, the time chunking thing, like the old, like that is huge for me. Like, I've always called it work intervals. Like I go back to that maintaining intensity thing. I'm not a big CrossFit person, but I did drink the CrossFit Kool-Aid for a while, and I work a lot with the Spec Ops guys, and that's obviously very well integrated into their world. So the thing that I appreciate and that I've taken away from that world is there's always an emphasis, and Greg Glassman was big on this, was maintaining intensity. Like I've talked about earlier, it's like, how do you maintain intensity? And part of it's mindset, part of it's like actual tactic. And like, so like in CrossFit, for example, I'll use this as an analogy first. There's these things called the descending ladder. I don't know if a descending ladder is where, you know, you might do 20 calorie round on an echo bike, like full on sprint for 20 calories, and then do, you know, 20 squats or something, or, you know, 20 front squats. Then you next round you do 15 and 15, and then you do 12 and 12, and then 9 and 9. And the idea is you're physically maintaining intensity, but you're mentally maintaining intensity is what you're doing. Because as the mental fatigue and the physical fatigue sets in, like doing 21 reps of something, it's just not realistic, and you're not going to have the output and the intensity that you want. So the goal is typically to maintain intensity throughout various mediums. And I've taken that approach with work. So like I know that usually in the morning, barring like my workout's done, my work intervals in the morning can usually be a little bit longer, right? So like I will go like 30-minute sprints, 60-minute sprints of work, you know, whatever. The different things have different values. Writing doesn't take as much energy for me, whereas, you know, if I'm actually like going through research, that's extremely demanding. But then I know that as mental fatigue sets in throughout the day, it's unrealistic for me to do 1 hour chunks in the afternoon. It's just not going to happen. So I kind of applied that CrossFit principle to how I chunk my time and how I chunk my work, where I go like, where do I have the most mental energy? Some people, it's the opposite. Some people have mental energy in the afternoon, but I think most people do wane as the day goes on. So in the afternoon, it might be 15-minute increments before I take, you know, a 15 or sometimes even 30-minute break. I work in these really deliberate chunks. So as an entrepreneur, that works. It doesn't work in a normal work environment, but if you're in charge of your own time, you're going to get more output that way. You usually do, because you also become much more responsible for the time that you may just be goofing around and not doing something productive. You might as well just put a proper label on it and just go and goof off and deliberately goof off. You know, that way you're like giving yourself a license to do it, and you're not feeling yourself with that like terrible feeling of I'm not working hard enough, right? And like I found that like my family appreciates it and likes it. You know, it's like I get to visit with them, and it's almost a little comic relief from something that might be stressful, you know? And so I just definitely encourage that. And then as like a big picture thing, I feel like always remembering, this is kind of funny, I can go like neuroscience for a second, but the strongest neurotransmitter that we actually have in the body is not like anything like dopamine or serotonin. It's oxytocin. It really is. That's the most powerful, most influential neurotransmitter. And people think that oxytocin is only achieved like when you hug somebody. It's usually through contact, like moms get big floods of it. Like actually, Pitocin, which they actually use to influence labor, is literally just a big flood of oxytocin that actually makes a woman relax so much that she gives birth. Not that it's relaxing, but it's point is like it dilates, right? So so oxytocin, as for men, it's not only when you come into contact, it's actually thinking about like, why are you doing this? The purpose of your family, like, right? So like we are flooded with oxytocin when we're around our families and our kids, because that is our biological evolutionary drive to like succeed. Is not because we want extreme wealth or whatever. It's because we want safety and security for our family, and we know what's best inherently, and it's not getting jaded by all the other shit that we see. So like really being able to remind yourself that. So that's why like also the time chunking thing and going back and like you don't need to separate yourself from your family for 8 hours if you don't want to. Like sometimes when I go back upstairs and I spend some time with my kids, it reminds me at a very fundamental level of why I'm doing this. And I'm not like sitting there thinking about it while I'm going back to work, being like, I'm doing this for my kids, I'm doing this for my kids, but it hardwires this thing in me where I'm like, this is my true drive. So think about those things that fundamentally drive you that are independent of money. Um, it really makes a big difference, and the money will follow with that for sure. Because that was a big thing for me with, in a business where,
Yeah.
social media, where it's sometimes you go a long time before you start making money on it sometimes. And if it wasn't for like truly trusting my gut and that drive, yeah,
That's awesome. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time.
for sure, man.
Really good. And that oxytocin thing you were just talking about right there too. Um, I just heard something recently. I don't know if you've seen any research on this, but when it comes to parenting for the child, there's always this oxytocin, right, release when they're spending time with their parents, right? Like that's always a thing. But the biggest oxytocin hit when they're with mom comes from that nurturing, getting a hug, like that loving sort of deal. And they do still get that when they go to dad and get nurtured and get a hug and cuddle with dad. They still get it, but it's bigger with mom, whereas with dad, it's a bigger hit when they're playing
Yes, yeah,
with dad,
yeah,
which I think is fascinating.
yeah. No, that's totally true. That is a real scientific fact. Yeah,
So interesting, man.
yeah.
So good.
I would
So good.
imagine it would change as the kid gets older too, where it's like things that, it's
Yeah.
play at the level of like wherever they're at, and I would imagine it probably even continues even when they're adults too. It's like just that engagement that they get with dad at whatever level they're at. Yeah.
So good, man. Oh, so good. All right, so I know we're coming up on time too. I have the final few questions, but the last two are super quick. This one though, I want to make sure we touch on anything that you're excited about right now. Like what's going 2025 is just starting and you've got, all the things that you do and all what you're building. Like what are you excited about right now? I'm working on this and I'm pumped about it. I've been diving into this and nerding out on this. I'm excited about it. I'm getting to help these people. I'm excited about it. Like, what's got you fired up right now?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think just in life in general, what's got me fired up is just, um, my kids just are at such a cool age. Like we're at such a, like a, that just fires me up. Like if they're basically 7 and 5, and like they're at just what I would consider to be like such a cool age where they're still portable. They still want to do the things that we do. So we can travel, like we can, so I'm just excited on that. And I'm excited that like my wife is at a place mentally where she's feeling so much better coming out of the craziness of littles. And she had a TBI last year that was really bad, like get kicked by her horse. And it was like, we're coming out of that. So it's like, I just feel a lot of, just positive, like with that. Like, so I'm just excited, like on undefinable things. It was just like, this is going to be a cool year of just a lot of things with our kids at this age. From a work perspective, I've really, like I mentioned earlier, starting to make a big pivot into like kind of elevating the smaller researchers. And I think that's going to open a lot of interesting doors because I feel like those are the people that don't really have a voice. I'm excited for, you know, Trump being inaugurated today, and hopefully a good. I
Yeah.
don't want to make it political, but I'm excited for like some good
Yeah.
stuff that's hopefully going to come out of that. Not even to make it political, but I just mean like with the health
Understood.
changes and things like that. But I would say, generally speaking, I don't look at my days as like this is what I'm excited about with work. I kind of go by feel, and I feel like my role is to give a voice to some of these scientists that don't have a voice and that get when you know how the research world works and you start understanding like who's granted a grant and who's like so it's hard to describe in people that don't like maybe aren't in that world, but it's very, very frustrating that like some of these people that are really making big discoveries don't have a voice. And I've just realized that like I think maybe I didn't have the confidence before, but now it's like I feel like I have the confidence to actually give these people a voice that might be what the mainstream or the norm doesn't want to hear, right? Like it's the stuff that's out there, but it gets smothered because they don't get the grants or they don't get the big financial play to get in the giant journals where social media will pick it up, if that makes sense.
Oh
So I'm
man,
excited to kind of, I guess, in a way, take that risk, but it's cool. It gets me up in the morning for sure.
that's rad. Have you
Yeah.
been able, like with Greg Glassman's Broken Science Initiative?
Yeah. Yeah. I went to his very first one. Yeah.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
cool,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
And gosh, man, and I feel horrible because he's working with a brilliant lady on that too, who we've brought in with our women, and I cannot remember her name for the life
Oh,
of me.
it's
Uh,
no, I know who you're talking about. She's kind of the lady that's why am I drawing a blank on her name? She's
I
up
am
out of
too.
Boston, right? Yeah, she's
Yes, brilliant human. Yeah.
yeah, I forgot because she's married to Peter Attia's former advisor. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking
Yep.
about.
Okay, cool. I
Yeah.
just want to make sure you were, yeah, I figured you were at least connected in there too. And she, again, she came on with our ladies, and she's a brilliant human being, but speaking to, everything that you're speaking about there in the research world, and, obviously very closely tied in with academia. So I know that there's definitely that game, that is being
Yeah.
played. And
It's frustrating.
it is
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Oh, Adam, all right, Adam, you're sneaking in. No worries. Meg, go
Just
for
a
it.
quick question. Kind of going along with that, is there any things from those small research, or not small, but I guess unknown researchers that you think is going to be kind of a game changer, or that you're most excited about that people may not know about?
Good question.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, a lot of it is coming down. I mean, there's a lot in the obesity realm, right? Like, because I think we're kind of taught that it's either a genetic thing or a calories in, calories out thing. Like, we're starting to see a lot more different, like, polymorphisms and stuff like that like aren't necessarily talked about, that are influenced like epigenetically by diet and by certain things in the diet and by certain like not necessarily like red dyes and things like that. Like what I'm talking about, like just more so like what our kids eat, right? And there's a lot more pediatric research that's coming out. I mean, like, okay, the things that we're feeding our kids really do affect like major like autoimmune issues and things like that as we get older. And I don't want to say it's suppressed, but they're just not getting when they don't get picked up by big journals, they end up just being considered like fringe research. But when you actually look at the data, it's pretty strong. And like I put one out with Dr. Andrew Kutnick like a week ago. It's fortunately getting a lot of momentum. It was published in a big journal, but it was in the performance realm. But just to give context, I don't have a dog in the fight whatsoever over high carb or low carb anymore. But it was very interesting to see that like this was really strong literature, like strong 6-week randomized control trial that when you looked at from a performance aspect, like carbohydrates basically made zero lick of a difference if you had people that were like ketogenic or people that were high carb in like long distance triathletes and like anaerobic athletes. All that mattered is that they had enough carbohydrates to essentially prevent exercise-induced hypoglycemia. So it comes down to like even like a Tour de France athlete only needs about 15 grams of carbs per hour to maintain maximum wattage and performance. And it was that is like going down a rabbit hole. But the point is that that's the kind of stuff that wouldn't get the visibility otherwise. And it's a very strong study, but it doesn't get always picked up by the same journals that we would hope it gets picked up by. So it's like, that's how I want to use my platform, is get the good research out there and let me not be the guy to articulate it. Let me be the guy that pulls it out of the people that actually do the research. Because that way I'm not, I've always been my own bottleneck with that because I'm not a PhD. So people could say that I misconstrue something or say that I have an agenda. But if I just talk to go straight to the source, and I'm not afraid to do it with both sides either, right? Like I want to, if there's conflict that comes up by like addressing both sides of the situation and interviewing both sides, I think it needs to be done. But it's those kinds of things like, I know I come out of the low carb world, so I'm aware of potential biases that I have there, but I do find that in the general theme, the low carb sphere has had a lot of the research, not necessarily surrounding low carb per se, but around metabolic and mitochondrial dysfunction that is just now starting to get attention just because some of the awareness that's coming out to it's like additives and things like that in food. So now people are like opening their eyes to it and they're more open to it. Whereas before you just sounded like a complete lunatic.
No, that's good.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Word. And Travis is jumping in, gents, and we'll go. Trav, we'll hit this one quick, and we're gonna take questions so we can make sure we honor time. And I get the last ones here. Go for it,
No
buddy.
problem. I'll cheat and ask like 10 questions real fast.
My
And
man.
I'm real curious, Thomas, what you thought about Saladino sort of coming forward with some opinions on moving from strict carnivore to adding some things like honey and odds and ends of stuff. So first question is Saladino's not change of heart, but just clarification on his position.
Yeah.
And then the second question, you mentioned shouting out some of these guys that have done great work and are making great material, but I didn't catch you name anybody. Do you have any recommendations? Hey, check this guy out. I love I'll just like more plays, more dates. Dude's Derek's killer, man. Like he's got something on everything. But are there guys? There's probably a ton of guys I know nothing about. Can you shout a few out?
Yeah. I mentioned Dr. Mike Ormsby. He's a really good one. Ormsbee. He's out of Florida State. He's an awesome dude. Steve Magnus is another one, like from the performance side of things. Like Steve Magnus, he is the University of Houston, I think. But anyway, he's amazing. Like everything, if you're into like anything endurance related, he is like the go-to source. And Professor Tim Noakes, I mean, he's been around a while, but Dr. Tim Noakes is awesome. But he's one of the reasons I appreciate him so much is just because he kind of coined the whole thing on like academic bullying, which he called it, like where like, it's exactly what we're talking about, like with like Greg Glassman and stuff, where like people that like go against the norm in research get almost academically bullied. So he's a really good one. Sometimes you have to dig because his stuff will get blacklisted a little bit. But yeah, Dr. Tim Noakes, Noakes. And that's really good. Joe, what's his name? Watso, Dr. Joe Watso. He doesn't have like a big following, but he's like, in terms of like exercise research, as far as just kind of an unconventional way of looking at how exercise influences pretty much all these cardiometabolic conditions that we talk about. So he's a good one. Right offhand, that's like what comes to mind, but there's a good number of them. And then your other question, which was actually refresh me real quick, or your first question was. Oh, the Saladino, yeah.
Saladino, because my wife was big on carnivore, and then anyway, I'm going to be respectful of time and just leave it at that.
Yeah, no, Saladino, I respect him. I've had him on my channel a couple of times. We talked about this on my channel. He's taught me some things, right? Like, I mean, Saladino, like he's a big personality. And the thing that I respect, and I will say this about, I have nothing bad to say about him, first off, but the thing that I respect most about him is no matter if he is wrong or right, the dude embodies every remote fraction of what he preaches. He is 100% the real deal. And so that doesn't mean that I always agree with what he has to say, but he lives what he talks about. And I respect and even go so far as saying I will trust someone that does that because they put their money where their mouth is, for sure. He's made a big pivot because he felt like his big thing from a performance standpoint was when he was doing carnivore, he was getting really bad muscle cramps. Like it was like, and as someone that's dealt with that myself, it's been, that's a real thing. So it kind of opened him up to looking in a different way. The thing that I would caveat is that he is a metabolically healthy person. So being able to load 200-300, sometimes 400 grams of carbs from honey is something that a metabolically healthy person can do. We do have to remember that literally 94% of the human population is metabolically unhealthy or has some level of mitochondrial dysfunction. So it's a huge caveat because it's the same thing with me. I went from being a hardcore keto to lose a bunch of weight, became super, super active. Yeah, I can have carbs in my system, but I'm very cagey about it. And I'm also very cautious with how I recommend it because I know that not everyone's going to respond the same way. So I think it works for him tremendously well. I think insulin's super, super important for recovery. And in someone that is metabolically healthy, an insulin spike will definitely induce recovery. So him having honey in the equation is great. So my touch on that would be that, the quality and the food matrix matters. So for me, my sugar sources would be the same as his, like honey, maple sugar, or maple syrup, date sugar, things like that. I know some people say a calorie is a calorie is a calorie. I don't believe that to be true. The food matrix is very important. So I don't have a problem with how he eats. I just feel like make sure that you're getting the kind of quality that he's getting, because he's in Costa Rica where the stuff is straight from the source, right? So hope that helps.
Yep, that's awesome, man. Oh, so good. So I know we're coming up here. So the last things, obviously, I want to make sure everybody knows where to find you because we do put that out. So wherever you would send them. And then the last question after wherever we find you, the most important to us is how do we support you best? How do we support you and the family? Those are the most important things to us.
Funny. I mean, I guess the best thing that people can do is watch a video through its entirety, so it helps the algorithm.
That's fair.
That's the first thing. Sometimes it's hard because like fortunately, I have a lot of trust with my audience, so it makes it really easy where like once I make the point, they don't have a need to stay on the video. Like, so people are like, oh, just like do 1 minute videos. I'm like, well, you don't understand. That makes the business model kind of hard.
Yeah.
But so, you know, and then, you know, where they can find me, you know, just type in my name on YouTube. It's pretty straight up. And other than that, man, I mean, just best thing that you can do is help me is teach your kids how to eat right and teach them how to be good, strong, hardworking men. And I mean that sincerely. That's the best thing that you could do for me, because that's going to help my kids have a better chance of living in a world with good people.
Dang right. And I know you mean that 100%. Man, so grateful. So glad we got to do this. I'll let you know California dates, man, when I get out there, because I'd love to come see you. And again, man, just super grateful for not just the time here, but all the good you're putting out in the world, brother. It's a big
For
deal.
sure, my man.
I'll take these guys through a debrief here in a little bit. I'll shoot you a text a little bit later. I want to just send a small thank you to your family if you're okay with it. But man, I'm always here, and we got your six, man, no matter what.
Appreciate you guys.
Awesome. Thank you, brother.